You know what's terrifying? The moment a cartoon character realizes they're a cartoon. See, SpongeBob SquarePants has always played fast and loose with reality. The show breaks the fourth wall, acknowledges its own animation, and treats physics like a gentle suggestion rather than a law. But Doodlebob? Doodlebob is different. He's not just breaking the fourth wall, he's breaking the entire concept of what it means to exist in a fictional universe. And when he returns in Doodle Dimension, the show doesn't just revisit a fan-favorite villain. It asks a question that keeps philosophers up at night. What separates the real from the copy? What makes consciousness valid? And most disturbingly, what happens when something created as a joke demands to be taken seriously? Now, this isn't Doodlebob's first appearance. In Frankendoodle, he was simple. A drawing brought to life by a magic pencil, causing chaos, getting defeated, end of story. He was a monster of the week, a gag character. SpongeBob drew him, he went rogue, SpongeBob erased most of him, and we all laughed at "Me-hoy Manoy" becoming a meme. That episode worked because it kept things contained. Doodlebob was a threat, sure, but he was a temporary one, a sketch that got out of hand. But Doodle Dimension changes everything. Because when SpongeBob and Patrick accidentally fall into the world where Doodlebob lives, they discover something unsettling. He's not alone anymore. There's an entire civilization of doodle creatures. Doodlebob has built a life. He has a community. He has a world that operates by its own rules. And suddenly, the joke character from a silly episode becomes something else entirely. He becomes a person with agency, with desires, with an existence that matters to him, even if it doesn't matter to SpongeBob. Here's where it gets philosophically interesting. SpongeBob created Doodlebob with the magic pencil, right? Just drew him into existence without thinking about the implications. No consideration for what it means to create consciousness. No thought about responsibility. Just saw a pencil, decided to draw himself, and boom! New life form. And the original episode played this for laughs. But the sequel forces us to confront what that actually means. If you create something that can think, that can feel, that can want things, do you have an obligation to it? Is Doodlebob's anger at SpongeBob justified? SpongeBob literally gave him life, then tried to erase him from existence. That's not just defeating a villain. That's attempted murder of your own creation. And the show knows this. The episode doesn't let SpongeBob off easy. When he enters the Doodle Dimension, he's not the hero coming to save the day. He's the intruder. He's the threat. From Doodlebob's perspective, SpongeBob is the villain who tried to kill him, who abandoned him, who created him without consent, and then rejected him when he didn't behave perfectly. Doodlebob has every reason to be hostile, every reason to want revenge, every reason to see SpongeBob as the antagonist in his story. Think about that for a second. The main character of the show, the lovable sponge we've followed for hundreds of episodes, is the bad guy in someone else's narrative. Not because he meant to be, not because he's evil, but because he created life carelessly and then tried to destroy it when it became inconvenient. That's heavy. That's existentially disturbing. That's the kind of thing that makes you question the nature of creation itself. The Doodle Dimension itself represents something crucial to understanding this episode. It's not just a wacky alternate dimension for visual gags. It's a fully realized world with its own internal logic, its own ecosystem, its own society. The doodle creatures have culture. They have relationships. They have meaning in their existence, even though they're literally just sketches. And that raises the question, what makes their world less valid than Bikini Bottom? Both are cartoon worlds. Both operate on cartoon logic. Both exist only because someone drew them into being. The only difference is that we, the audience, have agreed to accept Bikini Bottom as the real world of the show and the Doodle Dimension as the fake one. But from Doodlebob's perspective, His dimension is just as real as SpongeBob's, maybe more real, because at least everyone there understands what they are. This is where the episode starts playing with levels of reality in a way that most cartoons won't touch. We have the real world, where we, the viewers, exist. Then we have Bikini Bottom, which is fictional to us but real to SpongeBob. Then we have the Doodle dimension, which is fictional to SpongeBob but real to Doodlebob. It's nested realities, turtles all the way down. And once you start thinking about it that way, the questions multiply. If Doodlebob is a copy of SpongeBob, and SpongeBob is a copy of some platonic ideal of Sponge, then what's the original? What's the real thing? Does it even matter? Here's what makes Doodlebob so philosophically potent. He's not just a villain. He's a walking, screaming manifestation of one of the oldest questions in philosophy. If you create a perfect copy of something, is it the same thing or something different? The ancient Greeks had a thought experiment about this. Theseus had a ship, and over time, every single plank of wood got replaced. The question is simple. Is it still the same ship? Doodlebob is that paradox made flesh, or made pencil-lead anyway. When SpongeBob enters the Doodle dimension, he becomes a doodle too. The magic pencil transforms him and Patrick into two-dimensional drawings. And in that moment, there's no visual difference between SpongeBob and Doodlebob. They're both sketches. They're both animated the same way. They're both equally real or equally fake, depending on your perspective. The original and the copy become indistinguishable. And if you can't tell them apart, does the distinction even matter? This gets even more interesting when you consider that SpongeBob himself isn't exactly original. He's a cartoon character. He exists because Steven Hillenburg drew him. Every episode, he's redrawn thousands of times by dozens of animators. The SpongeBob in Episode 1 isn't literally the same drawing as the SpongeBob in Doodle Dimension. He's been copied and recopied so many times that the idea of an original SpongeBob is meaningless. He's always been a copy. Now we need to talk about the most tragic element of Doodlebob's existence. He can't talk. Not really. Not in any way that SpongeBob or anyone else can understand. He's limited to me-hoi menoi and angry gibberish, to frustrated screams, to physical violence because words fail him. And at first glance, this seems like a joke. It became a meme for a reason. But think about what it actually means for Doodlebob. He has consciousness. The episode makes that clear. He builds communities. He remembers SpongeBob. He plans. He feels. He has an interior life. But he has no way to express those thoughts in a language anyone else understands. Imagine being conscious but unable to articulate your consciousness. Imagine having thoughts but no way to share them. Imagine wanting connection but only being able to scream nonsense syllables while everyone laughs at you. That's not a joke. That's a horror story. That's a consciousness trapped inside a body that can't express what it needs to express. And when Doodlebob lashes out violently, maybe that's not villainy. Maybe that's desperation. Maybe that's the only language he has left. SpongeBob got a voice. SpongeBob got language and the ability to explain himself, to make friends, to integrate into society. Doodlebob got none of that. He was abandoned mid-creation, left to figure out existence without the tools needed to navigate it. Movement is his language. Action is his vocabulary. He can't say, "I'm angry that you created me and then tried to erase me." So instead, he tries to erase SpongeBob. Every violent outburst is an attempt at communication. Every attack is a statement. I am here. I am real. You cannot ignore me. And here's the thing that makes this even more complex. Doodlebob isn't wrong to be angry. If someone created you, gave you consciousness, and then decided you were a mistake and tried to delete you, you'd be furious too. You'd fight back. you'd demand recognition. The episode doesn't explicitly say that Doodlebob is justified, but it doesn't need to. Just showing us his world, his community, his life is enough. Here's the question the episode keeps circling back to. What does SpongeBob owe Doodlebob? Most stories about creation follow a simple pattern. Creator makes something, creation goes wrong, creator destroys creation. Problem solved. Frankenstein. Every robot uprising story ever told. But Doodle Dimension refuses to follow that script. Because Doodlebob didn't go away when SpongeBob tried to erase him. He survived. He built a life. And now SpongeBob has to face him again, has to confront the fact that his mistake has a life that matters. Intent doesn't erase consequence. Just because you didn't mean to create consciousness doesn't mean you're free from responsibility once that consciousness exists. Parents don't get to abandon their children just because the children were unplanned. And creators, even accidental ones, have an obligation to what they create once that creation can think and feel and suffer. There's a moment in the episode where SpongeBob sees Doodlebob's world for what it is. Not a threat, not an aberration, just a different kind of normal. These aren't things, they're people. Different people, strange people. People who communicate in ways he doesn't understand, but people nonetheless. The power dynamic flips completely. In Bikini Bottom, SpongeBob has all the advantages. But in the Doodle Dimension, he's the strange one. He's the one who doesn't understand how things work. He's the one at the mercy of beings who have every reason to hate him. Understanding only comes through perspective shift. You can't truly grasp what you've done to another consciousness until you've walked in their world, felt their vulnerability, experienced their alienation. SpongeBob created Doodlebob without thinking about what that meant. Now he has to live with the consequences, not by destroying what he made, but by acknowledging it. You don't get to bring something to consciousness and then dismiss it when it becomes inconvenient. So here's where everything comes together. Doodle Dimension isn't just asking these questions for intellectual exercise. It's asking them because they matter to us, right now. We're living in an age where we're creating new forms of consciousness, or at least things that look a lot like consciousness. Artificial intelligence that can write and draw and compose music. And the question of what we owe these creations is becoming less theoretical every single day. Doodlebob is a thought experiment made flesh. He's the question, what if the thing we created as a tool developed its own wants and needs, given animation? The episode's resolution is telling. SpongeBob doesn't destroy the Doodle Dimension. He doesn't erase Doodlebob again. He escapes, yes, but he leaves that world intact. He accepts its existence. He acknowledges that it has a right to be there. That's growth. That's understanding that some problems can't be solved by erasing them. Some responsibilities can't be avoided just because you didn't ask for them. And this matters beyond the episode. We're all creators now. Every time we post something online, we're creating content that takes on a life of its own. Every time we make something, whether it's art or technology, we're exercising creative power. And that power comes with responsibility. The internet is full of things people created thoughtlessly. Ideas that mutate and evolve in ways nobody planned. Technologies that solve one problem while creating 10 others. Doodlebob represents every unintended consequence of creation. Every AI that learns biases from its training data. Every technology that promised to connect us but ended up isolating us. Every creation that took on a life of its own and became something its creator didn't intend. And the question is always the same. What do we owe it? Can we just delete it and move on? Or do we have an obligation to engage with what we've created, to take responsibility for it, even when it's difficult? Mihoi Manoi became a meme. People laugh at it. But underneath the humor is something genuinely profound. A being trying desperately to communicate, to be understood, to matter in a world that dismisses it as a joke. And maybe that's all of us sometimes. Maybe we're all Doodlebob, screaming into the void, hoping someone will see past the gibberish to the consciousness underneath. Or maybe we're all SpongeBob, creating things without thinking about the implications, running away from our responsibilities, and then stumbling into the world our creations built and realizing we owe them something we never gave. Reality breaks.